Looking back, there were things about my childhood that at the time seemed like the end of the world. Like the time I got intentionally head-beamed in dodgeball, or when Monica Westphal rejected my Valentine in the 3rd grade. But now I realize that other kids didn't have it so lucky. In fact, I remember feeling bad for my friend Scott, because while I could eat leftover chocolate cake for breakfast when my mom wasn't looking, Scott had to make sure he took a shot before swiping any food, even the healthy stuff. That's because Scott had juvenile diabetes.
Juvenile diabetes is so-called type 1 diabetes, and it's a total lack of insulin production, where antibodies form against the beta cells of the pancreas that produce insulin, and therefore those cells are destroyed and the patient has no insulin at all.
Insulin is an essential hormone for your body to metabolize any kind of caloric intake. After you eat something, the body converts food into the monosaccharide glucose, which the body uses for fuel in the same way your car uses gasoline. But your cells can't take in this fuel by itself. They need the hormone insulin to move the fuel from the bloodstream to the cells. When someone doesn't have any insulin, the bloodstream begins to flood with glucose, and your cells have no way to access that fuel. And it doesn't take long for your body to realize that it's running on empty, and this car breaks down.
When the blood sugars go up to 800, 900, 1,000, 1,200, it's just incompatible with life. The body can't function with such a high level. So people who have it go into what they call diabetic ketoacidosis, where the body just totally cannot function, and you wind up with an emergency kind of a situation. So you must have insulin, just like you have to have any other kind of hormones in your body. If you don't have them, your body is not going to function.
Juvenile diabetes is primarily the result of a genetic predisposition, so there's no way to prevent your child from getting the disease. And unfortunately, science is limited in determining if your child is predisposed. It doesn't necessarily get inherited in a straight line from one parent to any one child, and we can't test for this type of diabetes until the antibodies are already formed, in which case it will be very obvious what's wrong.
It develops very quickly because once the blood sugars start going higher and higher and higher, you develop symptoms of increased thirst, increased urination, lethargy, tiredness. You just can't function. You go to sleep. The body just turns itself off. What happens is that the symptoms start occurring and the patient winds up going to the emergency room because suddenly they're unconscious, they're comatose, and they're brought to the emergency room, and the diagnosis is very obvious at that point.
There's no cure for juvenile diabetes, but it is a manageable disease. Monitoring blood sugar levels at various times throughout the day is an important component, and eating healthy and exercising regularly will help keep those levels under control. We also have to give the body insulin.
Juvenile diabetes has to be treated with insulin, typically with a combination of a long and a short-acting insulin. So the long-acting insulin can be given in 1 or 2 injections a day. The short-acting insulin needs to be given before meals, and there's no way to cut corners. It has to be. And it's a problem. It's a problem because, especially for kids growing up and all, it's a difficult situation for them. But there's no other treatment for it but insulin.
Since juvenile diabetes can develop as early as 1 or 2 years of age, many kids with the disease have lived with it for as long as they can remember. That's why it's important for caring physicians and parents to work with children in understanding their illness and the importance of insulin. I'm Dr. Keller Wortham, and you're watching the eHealth Network. We'll see you next time.